Iran launches the first strike, and America responds with everything it's had ready for 40 years. Wednesday, 2:09 a.m., Strait of Hormuz, 34 miles of black water between Oman and Iran. USS Gravely Guided Missile Destroyer was running the transit corridor at 24 knots when the launch detection hit every radar screen on the ship simultaneously. Not one missile, not two, 14 ballistic trajectories. Iranian Fateh 110 short-range ballistic missiles launched from 3 separate coastal batteries along the northern shore. Time to impact, 4 minutes, 18 seconds. Gravely's combat management system was already allocating intercepts before the watch officer finished reading the threat board. 4 minutes and 18 seconds is not a lot of time. Against an Aegis combat system that had been tracking every Iranian radar emission in the Gulf for 11 consecutive days, it was enough. The decision to strike had been made in Tehran 6 hours earlier, not by military commanders who understood the operational mathematics, by political leadership that had calculated the domestic cost of backing down exceeded the military cost of striking first. The American carrier USS Dwight D. Eisenhower had been operating in the Gulf of Oman for 11 days. Its presence was the provocation. Its continued presence was the ultimatum. Strike it or concede permanent American dominance over Iran's maritime frontier. The order went down the chain at 8 p.m. local time. Coastal battery crews were at their positions by midnight. Launch authority transferred to field commanders at 1:50 a.m. By 2:09 a.m., the missiles were in the air, and Tehran believed it had started something it could control. It had started something it couldn't stop. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Naval Command had been planning this strike profile for years. 14 Fateh 110 ballistic missiles in the opening salvo. Simultaneous launch from geographically separated batteries to complicate American intercept geometry. A follow-on strike of Noor anti-ship cruise missiles from fast attack craft staged 40 miles offshore. A second ballistic salvo 30 seconds behind the first to catch American interceptors reloading. The theory was saturation, overwhelm the intercept capacity, except that some missiles get stopped. Count on enough getting through to score hits on a $13 billion carrier. It was a reasonable theory against the air defense systems of the 1990s. Against an Aegis combat system running current generation software, tracking 128 separate targets simultaneously, and communicating firing solutions to every intercept-capable platform within 200 miles of the formation, the theory had a fundamental problem it couldn't survive contact with. USS Gravely fired its first SM-3 Block 2IA interceptor at 2:10:04 a.m. The missile reached engagement altitude in 88 seconds. Kinetic kill. First Fateh 110 detonated 47 miles above the Gulf without reaching its target. USS Stout fired 2 seconds later. USS Carney picked up the overflow contacts that Gravely and Stout had already allocated and was engaging simultaneously. The sequence was seamless. No gaps, no hesitation. No human bottleneck in the targeting loop, slowing the response. The Aegis network across 4 destroyers was operating as a single integrated system, each ship extending the coverage of every other ship in the formation. The engagement lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds from first intercept launch to last incoming missile destroyed. 14 for 14, 0 penetrations. The Iranian opening salvo, years in planning, hours in execution, launched with the confidence of commanders who had never seen it tested against a fully prepared American formation, had been absorbed completely. What's your call? Type A if the U.S. should respond with precision strikes on the launch batteries only and hold there. Type B if this is the moment to suppress Iranian naval and air defense forces across the entire Gulf. Drop your answer below. This decision shapes everything that follows. USS Eisenhower's air wing was already turning aircraft at 2:08 a.m., 60 seconds before the first Iranian missile impacted the intercept envelope. Not because anyone had predicted the specific strike, because the threat environment had been elevated for 11 days and the carrier's readiness posture kept aircraft at 10-minute launch status around the clock. Crews slept in flight gear. Aircraft sat loaded. Targeting systems stayed warm. By 2:14 a.m., 3 minutes after the last incoming missile was destroyed, the first FA-18RF Super Hornets were off the catapult on the number 2 buoy wire, 8 aircraft in the first wave. AGM-88 harm anti-radiation missiles for every active Iranian radar system within range. AGM-154 joint standoff weapons for the coastal battery positions. The response wasn't reactive. It wasn't improvised. It was a targeting package that had been built, refined, reviewed, and updated every 12 hours for 11 days. The Iranians fired 14 missiles. America launched 8 aircraft inside 5 minutes of the last intercept. That tempo difference wasn't an accident. It was the product of 11 days of preparation and 40 years of doctrine. The 3 coastal battery positions that had fired the opening salvo were struck at 2:31 a.m., 22 minutes after the last Iranian missile was destroyed. Each battery received 2 JSOW strikes in overlapping sequence. Battery 1 at Bandar Abbas was destroyed in 9 seconds. Radar van first, then the 2 launcher vehicles, then the command shelter as the second JSOW arrived. Battery 2 near Keshem Island took 11 seconds. Battery 3 at Bandar Abbas, the largest, the one that had fired 6 of the 14 missiles, the one that had activated its short-range air defense radar when it detected the incoming American aircraft, lasted the longest. The radar that came online to protect the battery found an AGM-88 harm already inbound before it completed its first sweep. The radar died. The battery followed 7 seconds after the radar. 22 minutes after Iran struck first, every launch platform that had fired that strike was destroyed and burning. Fast attack boats. That was the second phase of the Iranian plan. 41 IRGCN speedboats launched from coastal bases between Bandar Abbas and Larak Island at 2:19 a.m., 10 minutes after the ballistic strike, before any assessment of the ballistic strike's outcome had reached the boat crews, each armed with NOR anti-ship missiles and heavy machine guns. The doctrine was the swarm. Get enough small, fast platforms moving simultaneously from enough different vectors, and the defensive response can't cover all of them. The boats spread across a 60-mile front, accelerated to 55 knots, in the dark, with crews who had trained for exactly this scenario and believed they were executing the follow-on phase of a successful opening strike. They didn't know the ballistic phase had been stopped completely. They didn't know the coastal batteries that were supposed to anchor the operation were already gone. They knew their mission. They were running it at full speed into a barrier that was fully prepared and waiting for them. The radio discipline in those boats was professional. The navigation was accurate. The formation geometry was exactly what the training manuals prescribed. None of it was going to be enough. USS Gravely, USS Stout, USS Carney, and USS Cole had repositioned during the ballistic intercept engagement, forming a barrier line 28 miles ahead of the Eisenhower. Mark 45 5-inch guns cleared and loaded, phalanx CIWS tracking every surface contact within range, naval strike missiles staged for surface engagements, 8 FA-18s airborne with infrared targeting pods working the outer edges of the swarm at extended range, identifying and flagging contacts before they reached destroyer engagement envelopes. The geometry was wrong for the Iranian boats from the moment they left their docks. 41 craft attacking across a 60-mile front against 4 destroyers with interlocking fields of fire and air support above them was not a calculation that produced Iranian success on any model that used accurate capability inputs. But the boats were already moving. Had been moving for 10 minutes before the commanders, watching the ballistic failure, had a chance to process what had happened. Couldn't be recalled in time even if the order had been issued immediately. Subscribe to NavyForceUSA right now and hit the bell. Every operational detail, every tactical decision point, every engagement that other channels summarize in 30 seconds, we build out completely. The lead element of the Iranian swarm crossed into weapons engagement range at 2:44 a.m. 9 boats in the first echelon, moving at 55 knots in a spread formation designed to divide defensive fire. USS Cole's Mark 45 engaged the lead boat at 800 meters, outside the NOR missile's effective launch envelope, before a single Iranian weapon could be employed. Single round, direct hit. Second boat fired its NOR missile at 7,400 meters. The missile was airborne for 6 seconds before an FA-18's AIM-9X running a surface attack mode killed it 400 meters off the water. Third and fourth boats taken by Gravely's 5-inch gun in 2 successive rounds at under 7,000 meters. The fifth boat turned at 6,800 meters. The sixth fired and missed. Its missile lost lock in the electronic warfare environment the Growlers were maintaining above the engagement area and flew past the formation into open water. Boats 7, 8, and 9 were engaged by failing systems as they crossed inside 1,500 meters. The first echelon of 9 boats had been reduced to burning wreckage or retreating hulls in under 4 minutes. IRGCN commanders watching the tactical display at Bandar Abbas saw the first echelon disappear from their screens and began issuing recall orders for the second and third echelons, still running toward the same barrier at full speed. 11 boats destroyed, 14 turned back before reaching engagement range, 16 intercepted by FA-18s at extended range and forced to abort. 0 American vessels struck, 0 casualties in the surface engagement. The swarm doctrine had encountered the operational reality of prepared American combined arms defense and dissolved. The follow-on phase of a coordinated Iranian strike plan that was supposed to finish what the ballistic missiles started had produced no hits, no damage, and a debris field of burned hulls between Larak Island and the American barrier line. What would you do as the IRGCN commander watching the second and third boat echelons still closing on a barrier that just destroyed the first 9 in under 4 minutes? Comment your decision and your reasoning below. Iranian Air Force response came at 3:17 a.m. 8 F-4 Phantom IIs, Cold War airframes maintained through decades of sanctions and improvisation by crews who knew these aircraft the way surgeons know their instruments. Launched from Bandar Abbas Air Base, carrying AGM-65 Maverick air-to-surface missiles. Escorted by 4 Su-25 close air support aircraft carrying rocket pods and anti-ship weapons. The strike package was the best Iran's conventional air force could assemble on 90 minutes' notice. It was also the best they had, period. Not what was available that night specifically, the best they owned. Years of sanctions and parts shortages had left the Iranian Air Force with operational aircraft numbering a fraction of what the inventory showed on paper. The F-4s that launched were flown by experienced pilots who understood their aircraft's limitations intimately. They understood the limits. They launched anyway because the order had been given and the mission was the mission. Against an adversary that had E-2D Hawkeye aircraft airborne providing 360-degree radar coverage out to 300 miles, the package was detected 94 seconds after the aircraft left the runway. 4 FA-18F Super Hornets were vectored to intercept from their combat air patrol stations. AIM-120D AMRAAM missiles. Beyond visual range engagement geometry that gave the Iranian aircraft no realistic defensive option. The F-4s were still 62 miles from the carrier group when the lead aircraft was hit. The strike broke apart. 5 aircraft turned back immediately. 3 continued toward the carrier group. None closed inside 28 miles. None survived the attempt. The F-4 crews that turned back landed at Bandar Abbas at 3:49 a.m. and filed contact reports that accurately described what they had encountered. Their commanders read those reports and began making different calculations about the night's operations. The engagement had been running for 1 hour and 23 minutes when Iranian military command began assembling the operational picture. Ballistic missile salvo, 14 for 14, fully intercepted. Coastal battery sites, all 3 destroyed. Fast attack craft, 11 lost, 30 recalled. Airstrike, broken up 62 miles from the target. Every layer of the coordinated strike plan had contacted a different American system. Every American system had performed within or above its rated parameters. Nothing had penetrated, nothing had struck. The first strike that was supposed to demonstrate Iranian capacity to threaten American carrier operations in the Gulf had instead produced a detailed inventory of Iranian capability gaps against a prepared American force operating with full doctrinal integration. The political calculation that had authorized the strike, that the domestic cost of backing down exceeded the military cost of striking, had made a math error. The military cost wasn't what the models had projected. The models hadn't been built against this. In Tehran, the men who had given the order to fire were now reading the same operational summary as the admirals. The room where that document was read was very quiet. Don't miss the second phase breakdown. Subscribe to NavyForceUSA and enable notifications. The follow-on analysis covers what happens when America stops absorbing and starts dictating. American strike aircraft were back on the Eisenhower's flight deck between 3:45 and 4:10 a.m. Rearmed, refueled, weapons checks completed, relaunched at 4:22 a.m. in a second wave of 12 aircraft. The first wave had been defensive response, destroying the systems that fired. The second wave had a different mission. The ballistic batteries were gone. The boat threat was broken. The air package had been destroyed at range. The second wave was targeting Iranian naval command and control infrastructure across the Gulf theater. The joint headquarters complex at Bandar Abbas that had coordinated the night's three-phase operation. Communications relay stations along the Hormuz coastline that connected IRGCN boat crews to their command structure. The coastal radar network that provided Iran's maritime surveillance picture across the northern Gulf. Logistics facilities supporting IRGCN base operations at Qeshm and Abu Musa Islands. The fuel depot at Larak that had staged the fast attack boat formation before launch. Every node in the network that had made the night's operation possible. 31 targets across 7 locations. The targeting package had been prepared 11 days earlier and updated every 12 hours since. Every crew flying it knew their target, knew the approach geometry, knew the secondary targets if the primary was already destroyed. The strikes landed in coordinated sequence between 4:51 a.m. and 5:08 a.m., 17 minutes from first impact to last. Battle damage assessment imagery confirmed all 31 targets destroyed within 90 minutes of the strikes concluding. The Strait of Hormuz was operationally open at first light, had never been physically closed. The blockade had existed in Iranian intention, not in Iranian operational capability at the moment of crisis. But the infrastructure that could have made a real closure possible over days and weeks was gone. The coastal defense network that could have made American transit genuinely costly was gone. The command architecture that could have coordinated a sustained second effort was gone. Iran had struck first and lost every element of its Gulf strike capacity, ballistic, maritime, air, and command and control, in a single operational night that lasted less than 4 hours from the first missile launch to the last American aircraft recovering on deck. The tankers holding position in the Gulf of Oman for 4 days began their transits at 6:14 a.m. American escorts fore and aft. Nobody intercepted them, nobody challenged them. The sea lane was clear in every direction that mattered. The ships that had been waiting moved as if the previous 4 days had been a temporary inconvenience, now resolved. Was this outcome inevitable from the moment Iran made the decision to fire? American technological and doctrinal advantage making the result predetermined, regardless of Iranian execution? Or did Iranian commanders have a path to a different outcome if they had made different tactical choices on the night? Type Y for inevitable. Type C for choices still mattered. Make your case in the comments below. The operational record of that night is a document about preparation. 11 days of elevated readiness, 11 days of updated targeting packages, 11 days of crews who slept in flight gear and aircraft that never cooled. The Iranians fired first and lost because preparation had already decided the outcome before the first missile left its launcher. The Aegis network that intercepted 14 ballistic missiles in 4 minutes had been tracking Iranian radar emissions for 11 days straight, building the threat picture one data point at a time. The FA-18s that were airborne 3 minutes after the last intercept had been at 10-minute launch status for 11 days, without a break in that posture. The targeting data that put JSOW strikes on 3 battery sites 22 minutes after the last intercept had been built, reviewed, updated, and re-reviewed for 11 days by crews who knew exactly what they were going to hit and exactly how they were going to hit it. Iran's first strike was a tactical decision made in an hour. America's response was the product of 11 days of strategic patience, expressed in a single night of operational precision. That is the difference between a force that reacts and a force that prepares. To every military command watching the satellite feeds and signals intelligence summaries of that night across this region, what you observed was not an exceptional performance. It was a prepared force operating within its normal parameters. The exceptional part was that someone chose to test it. The result of that test is now in the operational record. The Strait of Hormuz is 34 miles wide. It takes a prepared American carrier group less time to demonstrate control of it than it takes to plan an attack against one. Strength in these waters isn't a posture that gets switched on for crises. It is the constant. It was present at 2:09 a.m. when the first Iranian missile left its launcher. It was present at 2:10 a.m. when the first intercept was already in the air. It will be present at whatever hour the next calculation gets made. If this tactical and operational breakdown delivered real analysis, like the video, share it with someone who needs to understand how modern naval warfare actually works, and subscribe to NavyForceUSA. We cover every engagement, every force disposition, every escalation decision that shapes this region. What does Iran do differently if there is a second night? And which American system in this engagement performed most decisively? The Aegis intercept network, the air wing, or the submarine presence that never fired a shot but shaped every Iranian decision from the start? Drop both answers below. The most complete analysis gets featured in the follow-up breakdown.